have never met a child with ADHD or autism who did not have sensory processing difficulties. Unfortunately, many pediatricians, teachers, psychologists, and behavior specialists don't really understand this framework and often use approaches that are not as effective because of that. I have worked for over 30 years in the neurodivergent space, first as an occupational therapist and now as a parent coach. Many of the clients I work with have a certain level of sensory processing disorder, or SPD. I also grew up with a father who had a good amount of sensory processing difficulties and also have some myself. So this is clearly a topic that I'm passionate about. And if this is of interest to you, I invite you to like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel. In this video, I will discuss three main parts. One, what SPD is, and I will share some examples of behaviors that are often seen with sensory processing disorder. Two, I will describe the impact of SPD on behavior, learning, motivation, and the impact on the family. And three, I will share the benefits of using a sensory processing framework. So I'm excited to share this information with you, and I hope it will be helpful. So let's get started. There's a lot of information online about sensory processing disorder, and I encourage you to read up on it. But a very summarized version of SPD is that kids tend to overreact or underreact to sensory input, whether it's related to touch, sounds, vision, smell, taste, movement, sense of hunger, or whatnot. Parents of children and teens with SPD often share with me that they feel like they're walking on eggshells and that every situation requires so much work. Here are a few examples of behaviors that can be related to SPD and that you may be familiar with. Talking loudly, unable to sit still, falling on purpose, constantly on the go, difficulty transitioning, messy and picky eater, mouthing non-food items, often too slow or too fast, jumping, spinning, or rocking, avoiding movement activities, too rough with objects and people, frequent meltdowns and tantrums, constantly touching people or objects, clumsy with gross and fine motor movements, discomfort with smells, touch, or sounds, discomfort with daily self-care activities. Our brain needs stimulation to function and interact with our environment, but we need the right amount. And if we get too much or not enough stimulation, we have a harder time staying regulated. And then we can't focus. We feel off. It impacts our motivation to do things and it makes it harder to learn. If we think of our brain as a car engine, we feel our best when the engine is running at the right speed for the task at hand. Imagine trying to drive 100 miles per hour on a windy mountain road or driving 20 miles per hour on the highway. Either one is not an ideal situation. Kids with SPD are often described as being too fast or too slow and overly sensitive. That's because of high sensory input from different situations impacts the brain. Just like everyone has a different tolerance for spicy food or the level of ambient noise, kids with SPD tend to have more extreme reactions to everyday sensory input. Sometimes they don't seem to notice the input, maybe when you talk to them or when they hurt themselves. And sometimes they notice it too much. They may become distracted or have a strong reaction to it, like avoidance or a meltdown or becoming overly excited and impulsive. The child with SPD doesn't understand why they're having such a hard time staying regulated and succeeding in doing the things they're asked to do. So it's just as hard for the parents when you can't figure out how to best support your child. And because SPD is a neurologically based condition, it's not the child's fault, it's not the parent's fault. Punishment doesn't help. It will actually make things worse. Can you imagine being punished for something that you don't understand and cannot control? Punishing a child for over or underreacting can lead to more behavior problems and can lead to anxiety and depression and a loss of interest in learning. Using a sensory processing framework with my clients has helped to solve many complex situations with both children and adults. This is why understanding the problem and using the right approach is so important for parents. You can't help your child until you understand what's causing the problem. Neurodivergent kids and teens are complex. Supporting their growth and independence requires additional knowledge that can be hard to find. So if I haven't convinced you yet of the importance of understanding the sensory processing framework, I'm going to share a couple more specific benefits. It will give you language to advocate and educate others. It could be when you're requesting school accommodations and services, or when attending an IEP meeting, when talking with pediatricians or therapists, or even family members. It will help you be proactive in anticipating which situations may be stressful for your child and how to best prepare them. It will help you modify the way you present some requests or activities so that your child is more motivated to engage. It could be making modifications in the environment or with schedules and transitions, or it could also help you create activities that are more calming and that can help your child to stay better regulated. This is often referred to as a sensory diet. If you're not familiar with this topic, it can be overwhelming. My encouragement to you is to educate yourself as much as possible. Equip yourself with knowledge. I have 2 videos on regulation and arousal, which can be a good place to start. The links to these videos will show up at the end of this video, so check them out. Another thing you can start doing is to look for patterns in your child's behavior. What type of input do they seek versus what type of input do they avoid? Once you start identifying patterns, it will make it easier to be proactive and make possible modifications. So if this resonates and you're feeling stuck, don't hesitate to reach out, drop me a comment or a question. And if you're thinking of working together, I'm also happy to schedule a chat where I can learn more about your particular situation and determine if we're a good fit for each other. So thank you for watching and see you next week.